In the last 2 months, Memphis has the best defensive efficiency in the NBA, and a ton of that success is due to the growth of Jaren Jackson Jr. 3 years ago, I called Jackson a defensive prodigy, and after some growing pains and a year lost to injury, Jaren has turned a huge corner this season. He's already one of the better rim protectors in the league, and his block percentage in 2022 currently ranks in the top 75 all-time, just ahead of Hakeem Olajuwon's incredible 1990 season and Rudy Gobert's 2021. With his 7.5-foot wingspan, Jaren's always been able to alter shots, but he's had trouble staying on the floor without fouling himself out. Some of this was likely inexperience, but he also had issues controlling his body as he leaned into contests, and he could be a bit handsy at times and picked up fouls with little reaches or taps. The old officiating didn't do him any favors either, and he was often the target of rip-throughs. Over the last year or two, Jaren has blossomed into a man, adding a ton of muscle on his physique despite just turning 22. And a key this year to me has been his improved body control on these contests and some improved discipline. In the past, his momentum probably carries him into the shooter here, but he stays down and is able to time up the shot. Here's another example. He's ready to help on the roller or the dribbler, and instead of lunging for a block, he waits on Harden and then attacks the ball with his offhand for the turnover. Same situation here, where he's playing center and can slide down on a threat, and he waits until after Reggie Jackson jumps, and that has no chance against Jaren. He's one of those defenders that can just eat up space with his size and length, and so you might not even think he's in the picture on an entry pass like this, and then he covers 15 feet in a single bound. As the game slows down for him with more experience, he can read plays and disrupt high-value actions in the paint. I loved this sequence against a dangerous Luka Doncic pick and roll, where he leaves a non-shooter to slide toward the roll man, and he's close enough to jump on the pass, and that effectively kills the entire action and eats up a bunch of clock. I also love this play against LeBron, where Jaren has his antenna up and helps after a breakdown, only to be dunked on by James. And you might be wondering, why on earth is being dunked on a good thing? And it's because he pulls his arms back to avoid a foul. This takes discipline and maturity. Maybe he makes the heroic block, but it wasn't worth the risk from that position. Compare that to some good old-fashioned rim protecting, stepping up and vertically contesting perfectly to erase a layup. And here's another picture-perfect help, positioning himself in front of the roller, then jumping backwards while tracking the ball with that huge outstretched arm of his. That's the thing, he doesn't need to take heroic chances with this level of paint presence, stalking the ball in transition here and forcing a kick out, then immediately stepping up to completely erase a second drive, and this is some impressive accuracy with those hands, but then he'll turn around and commit a sloppy foul, reminding us that he hasn't mastered the art of breaking yet. This one's much better, where he closes to the line and decelerates perfectly, then swivels with Naz Reid for yet another block. So while there's room still to grow, Jaren's made great progress contesting without fouling, and his foul rates have taken a significant dip this year. Most Defensive Player of the Year winners are under 5 fouls per 100, so Jaren probably needs to curb his fouling a bit more to realize that defensive potential. Yet, he's already a difference maker on one of the league's best defensive units, and he gives Memphis tactical versatility against varying opponents. He can switch onto most wings comfortably, and while he isn't a lockdown defender in those spots, he's still quite effective. He ends up on Harden Island here, and he's within range of the step back, but snaps his hips around once Harden drives, and because he's under control, recovers to snatch this dunk attempt, and it's a jump ball. He's not quite Matisse Thybulle, but he's really good at challenging shots from behind, and he's even better timing up a challenge alongside a shooter. He's switched on a wing here, And once Jaren gets his hips alongside the ball handler, he can time up that challenge, and because he's so big, he can just wait until they jump before he leaves his feet. Same quarter, same thing against Anthony Edwards. Jaren spins his body around, flows from his stride into the leap, and he's at about 11 feet in the blink of an eye. Defending the pick and roll, he gives Memphis unlimited options. Here, he blitzes DeMar DeRozan and is able to slide with him but also recover back for a possible chase down off that pass. But he can also come up to meet DeRozan at the level of the screen and just late switch onto him because this isn't much of a mismatch. And from the same game, he can execute the classic drop, keeping the ball and his man in front of him while playing goalkeeper at the rim. If we look at field goal percentage against, Jackson's near the league leaders, with opponents shooting 15% worse than expected against him when they are within 6 feet of the hoop. It's a noisy stat, but he was near the top of the league in his first 2 seasons as well, and isn't too far off from rim-protecting royalty like Giannis Antetokounmpo and Rudy Gobert. On the offensive end, Jaren's primary weapon when he entered the league was bombing threes. He shot 38% on over 500 threes in his first 2 seasons. That number has dipped to 31% this year, but his overall shooting indicators, including 80+% from the line, make me think he's still solid from distance. That adds versatility to the Grizzlies' offense because he can drain threes as a trailer in semi-transition, and he can get into those shots off of movement. This dribble handoff action is common for guards, but not 6'11 bigs who suddenly launch into a triple. Since Jackson's so comfortable floating into his threes, he's a viable pick and pop weapon as well, and yet he can also turn and roll downhill, attacking backpedaling defenders after setting the screen. It's rare to see big men flying off corner screens like this, but Memphis again uses him like a wing, and one of the more common plays in the league is setting a flare screen for a perimeter player like this, only Jaren catches and attacks as a center on this kind of play. And this is where it gets really exciting because Jaren's shooting pulls out a big man, and then he can pass out of actions like this. He's still a limited distributor, but Memphis uses him in middle pick and roll actions on these plays just like he's a guard. This pairs nicely with movement shooting because he can flow from a spot up into something like a handoff, then throw a little pick and roll pass with all of the shot blockers pulled out of the paint. He can't convert all of these passes yet, he leaves this one a little bit short, but the ideas are manifesting, and hesitations into jump lobs are just insane for a 7-foot shot blocker. Jaren's biggest issue as a passer comes from head-down tunnel vision drives, where he can miss passes, but also end up a bit out of control, and that can lead to him picking up unnecessary offensive fouls. His drives are a bit of an adventure in that sense. He isn't completely under control and balanced off this spin, and that impacts the shot. Yet, at the same time, he also has a knack for finishing at tough, awkward angles near the goal. Since his handle is showing some promise, and he's naturally gifted at finishing funky shots, that one's off the wrong leg, improved balance and a little more control would be a huge upgrade in these dynamic closeout situations. Slowing down like this and finishing with more strength would also improve his efficiency around the hoop, and that will help him bang down low as a post scorer. He already has a decent little lefty hook on the block, and he's getting strong enough to quickly take advantage of mismatches and back them closer to the cup. Jackson already draws free throws at a decent rate, but I don't think his key to stardom is scoring 25 or 30 a night. Instead, I think it's improving the quality of his broad palette of offensive options, staying under control, limiting fouls and turnovers, and boosting his passing and efficiency in the process. He's made a jump in some one-number metrics, and I think that's because his defense is rounding into form. the defensive-only version of many of these composite stats view him as a really good defender right now on that elite Memphis defense, and I tend to agree. There's still a ton of room for growth in the next 4 or 5 years, but I really like the way Jackson's playing lately, and so right now, I view him as a sub-all-star caliber player. If you want more Jaren, there's a few extras for subscribers at patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. That is also the best way to support this channel, podcast, and just all things thinking basketball. Let me know what you think of Jaren these days, and if you find the Grizzlies as scintillating as I do, and otherwise, hope you are having a great day.